Captain's log 180726. I'm gonna roll my window up here. It's a little loud. There we go. Hopefully you can hear the audio. I left my mic at home, so all good though. I'm just heading down, do some plumbing at my good buddy's place, so that should be a good time. I don't get to see this guy too often because he's a little further away, so I'm happy whenever I get to go see him. But anyways, yeah, it's gonna be a bumpy ride. That's just it's just the nature of roads nowadays because the government doesn't take care of them, so you're just gonna have to deal with it. But yeah, so I want to talk about AI and data centers. So it's a huge topic these days. We have a closed road here. Nice. But yeah, anyways, big topic, the data centers. So that's, in all the news, everybody's talking about how much energy these things take, how much water they take, the land, et cetera. It's all these billionaires and corporations that are basically taking the resources that, the locals feel like could be used for better purposes, which, they're probably not wrong, but yeah. Now, there's a lot of fear about AI, and a lot of it's justified. There's reason to be scared of government overreach or even terrorists, whatever, bad actors, other governments, like whatever, people say China, whoever. There's reason to be fearful of that they can use it for nefarious reasons. But on the opposite hand, AI can also solve a ton of our problems. There's things that computers do, a million times better than people, and there's no reason that we shouldn't be trying to use the best option for that, right? Off the top of my head, I can think of some examples such as like healthcare. So dispensing medicine. Why would you not have an AI that can do it 100% every time, and automatically? Like, why not, right? Now, you have to have humans checking everything. You have to have humans still there to make sure that things don't go wrong, but you would anyways. You don't have, nobody ever has like no supervision at all, right? So it's not like that changes. So that's one example. But there's many examples of things that AI can do that we obviously can't, and that's a good thing. That's we should be utilizing that as best we can. But on the flip side, obviously, if only certain people have AI, or if it's the bad actors, then obviously it can be used for bad things, right? And we don't really want to get into that, right? Obviously. So there has to be some sort of regulation. Now, the problem that I see is whenever the government decides to regulate these things, it's always regulated so that the individuals lose freedom and the corporations and people who maybe don't have our best interest in mind end up gaining all the power. So it ends up being like this huge difference in power between, you know, these minorities of corporations and billionaires and whoever in government versus the regular people. And that's obviously a huge issue, and we don't want to continue on that road, or the gap gets even wider and wider between the people and the powers that be. But there's one thing that nobody really talks about. Everybody talks about these giant AI data centers and these giant AI companies and all these things, but nobody talks about the little guys. And to me, that's the most important part of this. That's the most interesting part of this, is if you see kind of trends happening, you could see that there's a lot of people getting into this market who don't necessarily have billions of dollars. They don't necessarily, control governments and whatever. They're just a dude who's got, 10 small, powerful computers running in a basement, and they're selling data to, whoever. There's all these companies coming on, and what that shows me is that there's a market for decentralization, and decentralization is freedom. So we need to keep pushing into that, and individuals need to keep exploring that and using those benefits, because the more that we learn about that, and the more that we put money and put experience into that and test these things, the better they become. And all of a sudden you have millions of different people running these basically data nodes that can all compute AI, and it makes these huge data centers kind of obsolete. Because if you think about it, if you're running computer, I don't even really know what you call these things. Like, I'm not an expert on this, but I see the stuff on YouTube, and I see that, and I research the stuff as best I can. For the Neanderthal that I am, I try my best. But if you watch these guys, they're running these small homemade computers, and they basically have to try to use as little energy as possible to make money, right? Because they don't want to spend tons of money on a hydro bill while they're trying to cut their costs to the customer to market to whoever, like people who just need a little bit of data, right? And you have all these people running whatever it is, Claudebot or Hermes Agent or whatever, on their own personal computer, and then they also need data. But if you buy data from OpenAI, it costs a lot of money. And when you are able to source different competitors, and sometimes you don't need like the computing power, sometimes you need just a little bit, right? And it could be slow, and it could be whatever. There's all different types of computing that are done by these AI. So these small guys can actually fill that gap and fill that market, and they're doing it right now, and they're doing it well. And the best part about it, like I was just saying, they want to cut costs. So that means that they don't want to use a ton of energy. So that means that people are innovating ways to make these computers run on less energy, and also find different ways of cooling the thing and all kinds of stuff. And it ends up being more environmentally friendly. And that's the funniest part about this, is that all these, climate scientists and governments and they're all pushing on the individual. You can't drive to wherever, you can't do this, you can't do that. And in reality, it's the individuals who find a solution to all this stuff. These data centers use a giant amount of water, they use a giant amount of power, like unfathomable amounts of power, that they end up having to make their own power stations because they can't even use what's on the grid right now. So these things are these giant, basically climate disasters, if you care about that stuff. And they're the ones telling us that, well, you have to save energy, you have to this, you have to that. And the ironic part is that the individuals who are competing against them are actually saving energy, they are actually innovating and are actually doing that stuff. And that's why it's so important, because if we keep pushing, research and development into the individual, small businesses, individual people running nodes, running whatever, and the decentralization, that will drive out these giant competitors, because they won't be able to compete with somebody who's running 20 nodes in their basement, who are taking up all of the small data needs of whatever. And it doesn't have to be, one individual only has to serve a handful of AI bots or whatever. Like, it doesn't or even a handful of tasks. Like, these AIs have different tasks, so it only has to serve a little bit to take up some of the market. And if you have 1 million people doing that, and they all are running 10, 20, whatever amount of computers, all those people are filling that gap, and you're taking away market cap from these giant AI corporations, and you're decentralizing everything. Now all of a sudden, you're not beholden to the whims of Palantir or whoever, OpenAI, any of them, like any of these, or I don't know what, China, DeepSeek, or whatever the heck all these people are, who inevitably will try to tell you what you can and can't do on their platform, and they can handpick the type of things that the general population gets to see. And you might think, well, that's a good thing, but when you get into the nitty-gritty, you look at these corporations, they're all competing for resources, they're all competing for all these things. So they're going to tell you, well, we need to have this land, we need to have this water, we need to have whatever, because you, the people, aren't good stewards of this, and you guys are creating climate change, and you guys are doing this, you guys are doing that. And then they'll go and throw a big giant ass data center on it and absolutely destroy the native biome. Basically, they destroy all the water, the fresh water. They flatten the land and put up this giant stupid data center, when all of this stuff can be done by individuals, a lot of it anyways. So anyways, I thought that was kind of ironic, and I thought that was kind of funny that the people who end up being the solution are always the ones that are kind of demonized for, or not even demonized, but they're just like, they're the ones beholden to all the rules. They're the ones who have to find a way around it. And the people who are telling them what to do always end up being the ones who are just like unaccountable to all this. I really think it's important for everybody to look into what is going on with AI. It is the biggest thing in the last however many years, probably 1,000 years, that humans have have done. It's going to create a lot of change eventually. It's maybe not what everybody thinks too. Like, some of it's going to be different, some of it's going to be better, some of it's going to be worse. But if you care about individual freedom and you care about having, clean environments, and you care about all this stuff, then it's important to look into the decentralization and make sure that every person has more sovereignty and more power individually than they normally would have, because otherwise you're beholden to the whims of whoever the top dog is, and you might agree with whatever they're saying, but next week you might not. So even though you think that you align with these people, well, that's temporary. Like, that's temporarily true, but next week it could be different. They can change their mind. You could change your mind, and you need to have the power to be able to implement some sort of change, or at least to be sovereign for yourself. So, yeah. I just like everybody should look into this stuff, and if you are using AI and stuff, try to find ways to use these decentralized data centers. I'll see if I'll probably put a comment or a link to whatever ones I can find. This is like a new thing. This isn't, these things happen so quick, and this stuff is happening and changing so rapidly, it's hard to keep up with. But I want to make sure that, like, even though it's a new thing, I want everybody to have their finger on the pulse and to be looking out for the stuff so that they can promote these things and jump in early. Obviously, even jumping in early gives you an advantage, right? So get in there, learn about the stuff. AI, it's over my head, it's over a lot of our heads, but it's important to at least try to understand it. Because it is the future. It is it's inevitable now. You can't put you can't put the cork back in this bottle. It's open now. So there's nothing you can do about that. So anyways, I want to talk about that. I think it's cool. I think it's scary. I think there's a lot of things going on, but check it out. And guys, if I know I haven't been doing a ton of videos, but if there's something that you want to see, throw it in the comments. I'm going to keep trying to make more videos. I'm super busy right now. I've made some cool projects. I'm going to be coming out with them. I have some bugs and stuff to fix and whatever before I start talking about it. But some really cool things that I'm throwing out. I've wrote a couple books. If you want to read them, check them out on Amazon. I'll try to throw the links for that as well. I actually have them here. Funny enough, I was bringing a copy down to my buddy. So the first book, Secure Your Own Mask First. It's about how to implement change around you and where to start, basically. So the same idea as you're in a airplane, the airplane's going down. Well, you can't put the mask on your kid or whoever's beside you. You got to put yours on first, so then you can actually start helping people. Because if you pass out, you're no good. So it's the same. That rule applies to life, right? That rule is an important one. Anyways, first book, that's the first one. The second one, it's the accountable class and the untouchable class, and it's pretty self-explanatory. We're living through that right now. Some people are seem to be above the law, and obviously that's a problem. So that one is more of an essay that I kind of was writing. It was what began as a conversation between myself and ChatGPT, trying to understand my own thoughts, understand what's going on, and then I decided to put it out there for everyone. Yeah, if you're interested, they're on Amazon. I'll try to put the link in the comments. Anyways, I think that's it. Delta out.